on your best behavior. Good morning, everyone. This is the Wednesday, August 20th meeting of the Dunn County Planning, Resource and Development Committee. Call the meeting to order. Everyone is present except Supervisor Bernier, who is excused today. So we have two kinds of public comment. One is just general public comments. And then if we have any specific public comments with regard to the comprehensive farmland preservation zoning and comprehensive farmland planning and preservation plan update. I'll spit that out eventually. And then, of course, we have a public hearing, and we'll inside of that hearing, there'll be an opportunity for public comment on within the hearing on the topic of the hearing, the rezone hearing. So with that, do we have any general public comments today from anyone? Did anything come in, Tom? Okay. Do we have any comments anyone would like to make with regard to the comprehensive zoning plan? Okay. Then we'll begin oh yes, where is that? There you go. Oh yeah. Right where it says approval of the minutes, right? Yeah. Yeah, let's do, would anyone care to move approval of the minutes from August 6th? Is there a second? Supervisor Kinnear seconds. Morehouse approves or motions. Any corrections or additions? All in approval, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Minutes are approved. We have no public comments, so we'll move into the public hearing. And I would just note that this public hearing is the only opportunity for the public to speak on this issue. One time only, one person only at a time. Before testifying, we would address the committee, state name and address, and be sworn in. It would be a very simple procedure. So well, first of all, maybe ask for the staff to report on the meeting of the requirements for public notice, and then do the staff presentation. Tammy.
Good morning, Chair and committee. Yes, the public hearing notice was noticed in the Colfax Messenger for August 6th and August 13th. In addition to the adjoining property owners within 300 feet, the town of Red Cedar and the city of Menominee extraterritorial zoning.
Okay, why don't you do your report then, Tammy?
Perfect. So the committee is reviewing a request today from Gary and Corley Witzel, E5444 510th Avenue, town of Red Cedar. This is section 31. The current zoning district is general agriculture. They're wishing to rezone 3.77 acres from the general ag district to the residential R2. A quick overview of the project location. You can see on the bottom right hand where the city of Menominee line falls then into the town of Red Cedar. Off to the right, just briefly, you can see R2 zoning for that subdivision in the area. Parcel was lot 1 of the CSM was created in 1985. Part of it was split off to adjoining landowners at the time, so the CSM doesn't quite reflect what you see today in the parcel, but it's pretty minor for that portion. The regulations that you're considering today are going to be related to comprehensive zoning, our comprehensive plan, and in consideration of the town of Red Cedar's comprehensive plan also. Both land use maps for future land use maps for the town of Red Cedar and Dunn County show this area as residential. Basic site features include slopes between 10 and 20%. Soils are identified as farmland of statewide importance. The site has been evaluated and is suitable for a mound system, and the applicants have received approval for access off of County Road J. As you can see that there's no active cropland production occurring on this 3.77 acres. A couple photos of the site for reference. And you can see on the left-hand side, the proposed site plan where they basically would be splitting that parcel in half. Town of Red Cedar reviewed the request on August 11th and recommended approval. So the criteria for the committee today is to consider consistency. So based on staff's findings that this property is consistent with our comprehensive plan, which shows future land use as residential. The existing land uses within the area and zoning classifications all fit within the city of Menominee R1 zoning to the north. There is general agriculture to the south and R2 to the right. Under the existing general ag district, the property may be used for agricultural purposes and limited residential uses. However, the parcel is less than 8 acres and the additional residential density is unavailable and prevents them from establishing an accessory dwelling unit, which is requiring then a rezone to R2 in order to create a additional dwelling. Again, development trends in the area, this does fall within the city of Menominee's extraterritorial zone, which then supports that future residential growth and acknowledging that transition from agriculture to residential uses. The proposed amendment would not create an isolated zoning district. Again, because of that, future land use showing the extraterritorial zoning extending far beyond this parcel. The amendment is not anticipated to negatively affect the use, enjoyment, or economic value of the surrounding properties. And as far as environmental impacts, the amendment is unlikely to cause unreasonable adverse impacts to air quality, groundwater, surface water, and the natural vegetation. As far as noise, odor, light, and activity impacts, the amendment is not expected to cause serious noise, odor, light, or disturbances in the area. The property is not vacant, so we are not taking anything out of production. As far as public health, safety, and welfare, the proposed amendment is consistent with the planned residential development, provides orderly growth, and allows for the approved access point from County Road J. The change would not adversely affect public health, safety, and welfare. And finally, is historic significance. There is no historic significant features of known or documented within the vicinity. The rest of this is just the staff's or the applicant's application that's included in the staff report. I don't know if the committee would like to review that additionally or if have any questions at this point.
Any questions first? Once you review the applicants, thing just quickly.
Again, overall, just the applicant is requesting to rezone for the purpose of developing a second lot for a single family home. And their questions and answers were reiterated by staff up above, really fall in line with the residential consistency use of that area. Upon approval of the rezone, the applicants will be required to get a certified survey map, creating that official land division.
Thank you, Tammy. Any questions?
Question?
Yeah.
Does your Red Cedar have a R1 or is everything R2?
Everything is R2.
Oh, so it don't matter R2. You could be like, a duplex, but here it's basically a single family the way they explained it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? Is the applicant here today, Tim?
The applicant is here. Yep.
Would you care to say anything? You don't have to. I'm sorry, I apologize, but I'm gonna have to, because it's a public hearing, we have to have you come up to the stand up there. It'll just take a second. I apologize for that. And then if you could state your name, and then I'll very quickly swear you in.
My name is Eric Witzel,
Address?
E5444, 510th Avenue.
You swear your testimony today will be truthful in every respect.
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Basically, the whole reasoning behind the single family home is my parents are getting up in age, and a few years ago, my dad had a stroke, so he's partially disabled. And it's just basically up to me and my brother to take care of, our parents. And my brother lives in Eau Claire, and I live here, so it's easier for me to take care of them. And so that's basically the reason is I'm building a home next to them to take care of them. So
Does the committee have any questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming.
thank you.
All right. Any discussion by the committee of the rezone request? Is there a committee member who will make a resolution to approve the request? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I think with that, we've completed the elements of the public hearing. And I will close the hearing. And then without objection, especially in light of the applicant's time, would it be okay if we move this item up to this point in the agenda? Sure. All right. Then I would ask if there's anyone on the committee who would, well, I would first of all ask, is there anyone on the committee who would like to make a motion one way or the other on this ordinance?
I'll make a motion that we will rezone to R2.
Okay. Is there a second? Michael seconds it. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor of approval of the rezone?
Aye.
Opposed, say no. And the rezone is approved. Thanks, Tammy.
Yeah, if you want to, but I don't know if you want to spend an hour going through our budgets.
Oh, yeah.
So you can escape.
Give a life to me, so go ahead and do this. Yeah, thanks for,
The only reason why I'm leaving.
thanks for coming. So next item is, item 7 is staff reports. Register of deeds, please.
Good morning. So we are reviewing July monthly report, and July was another busy month for us. We issued probably 100 more vital records than we did in June. We still see a lot of requests due to the real ID. People are still getting their real ID, so they're needing copies of their records. About the same amount of ownership transfers, about the same amount of documents recorded, and looks like more in-person customers. So yeah, just another busy month, which we expect usually in the summer months in our office. In other business, we were reviewing our budgets, and New phone system training and installation. And did perform the quarterly check-ins with staff. And also participated in the Coop Cog drill and reviewed our department plan. So that's all I have.
Any questions? Heather? Okay. Thank you. Tom?
Good morning, everyone. So my report is up on the screen here. We'll just go through the land divisions that were created in the month of July. They were all done through certified survey maps. When we look at strictly number of new parcels created and acreage for that matter, New Haven led the pack with 3 new lots, 26 acres. And you can see the other totals there. So it was a typical month or stretch that we see during the summer. 27 maps a survey were submitted for review and filing. So that was quite an increase in those. We worked on 19 public land survey system corners in the towns of Elk Mound, Menominee, New Haven, Tanner, and Tiffany. I attended a steering committee related to the ERP financial system, a department head and senior management meeting. There was also some training facilitated by Real Living that focused on leading people through change. And then, as Heather had mentioned, we had a cybersecurity attack drill where we tested our Coop Cog plan and the code red. So I don't have anything else to add unless there's any questions.
Any questions? Okay. Okay.
Well, it's been an exciting month for us in July. Kind of just our overview of our monthly permit stats. I was going to highlight the mobile tower permits. It's been pretty active with 8 mobile tower facility improvements request, 1 new mobile tower, and I have 2 additional mobile tower permits sitting on my desk now. So I don't know what's going on in the universe or Dunn County, but we have a lot of interest in upgrades to equipment.
Yeah.
Do those have to go through the BOA?
They do not. Nope, state statute changed, and we are actually really limited on our time frame to even turn around reviews now in mobile towers. So we can't prohibit them in any zoning district. They just have to meet the statute requirements.
Okay, when I was on the BOA, that we always approved those.
Correct, yep. And for these now, they're really just swapping out equipment for the 8 that I have or have issued so far. So we really just have that 1 new mobile tower, and even in that case, it no longer goes to committee. Board of Adjustment, we had our organizational meeting in July. Crystal Halverson is the chair. Tim Lena was voted as vice chair, and Chase Potter is our secretary. We were able to gain an alternate, Ryan Martin, and we still have a vacancy, which I have a candidate who is interested, just trying to coordinate that schedule. So we might be operating at a full Board of Adjustment here. It's pretty exciting. Comprehensive plan, just a quick update. I did share that with the committee as far as the survey status. So additional mailing did go out. That farmland owner survey will be going through September 5th. Kind of just an overview of different activities that we have going on. Really excited just to kind of report that we have over 1,000 soil evaluations that are now logged and easily accessible. When a soil test report is filed with our office, we have 6 months to review it. And the historic practice was it was reviewed and thrown in a file and never scanned, never indexed. So in the future, if anyone wanted to find that soil evaluation, we were going through multiple files in order to find them. So it's a huge success and to staff saving time now going forward, even for the plumbers to have access to this information. And then the next really exciting highlight is our new GPS technology that we've been borrowing the equipment from Land Information. And this is just a highlight of the septic system new installs that have been utilized with this technology. And what that looks like on the landscape is just shown in this image, where staff are able to get real-time information. And as soon as they get back to the office, they sync it up and it's available. You know, historically, staff would go take physical measurements, bearings and distances, and then spend all winter in AutoCAD drafting as-built designs. So this is a huge time saving for us. And that's all I have.
Questions, Terry? Okay, thank you. Chase.
Morning, everyone. A couple highlights in my report on the screen. So private well sampling that we have been undertaking the last 6 weeks in partnership with the Public Health Department has finally finished up last week with 311 samples collected. So yeah, it took us about 6 weeks to collect all those. And the lab here in public health, Amy there ran 18 different batches for those samples, and we'll be getting those results out as they come to all the landowners. So it was a good program. I always joke with staff that we should write a book on this because of the experiences they have. Maybe someday we'll publish it, but other news, I just based off of last committee meetings, in-depth, lengthy discussion on the comp plan. I wanted to just highlight a few other planning activities that we are undertaking within the Land and Water Conservation Division. And my hope is that there is some efficiency or something to be gained, some opportunity with the comp plan and how these other plans can interact with that, specifically when it comes to goals and priorities and where we want to see the Land and Water Conservation Plan going, but also participating in that city sewer service area plan update and then a few other things. So just wanted to highlight those, and if there's consideration in the future of how we can make those more effective and efficient together instead of doing standalone. We have to do standalone plans for a lot of these, but hopefully they're consistent. The other thing I highlighted in the past, we had a little bit of discussion on the Soil and Water Resource Management Staffing Grant that was approved through the next biennial budget. I provided an update in this report that gives a little bit more clarity and maybe a little bit of a setback into what we were expecting for those funds, primarily as it relates to how the funding formula is calculated and what years of staffing costs are used. So for example, to apply for 2026 funding, we apply in 2025 using 2024 numbers. So when this is proposed and passed through the legislature for an increase, that formula of 100, 70, and 50, 100%, 70%, and 50% of the first three positions across the state in land conservation departments would be accurate for this year, 2025's expenses. But when we look at the biennial budget going into 26 and 27, we're a year behind basically in how that was calculated. So we aren't going to fully get what we thought, but it still is a significant increase in what we have been getting. So just want to be clear that in case you see numbers in 2026 come out that don't seem to reflect that 170-50, that's the reason why. And then the last thing I just want to highlight, I had the opportunity so I'm serving on the Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation Board of Directors, and we have built a strong partnership in the last few years with the National Association of Conservation Districts, and they held their first annual meeting in Milwaukee this past month. First time that's ever been held in Wisconsin, primarily due to the fact that Wisconsin's different. We're unique in how our soil and water districts are structured. We don't have soil and water districts anymore. We have land conservation committees, and we have a state association that's merged with employees and land conservation committee members having equal say on an association, and that's not necessarily how the National Association operates. But after many years of effort, Wisconsin's being recognized. We have, as a state, voting privileges in the National Association priorities, which can be effective and helpful to national and federal budgeting and federal policy. So it was a good event. Got to meet a lot of people across the country, and they're quite impressed at how Wisconsin operates and what we do. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Thanks, Chase. Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but the monthly reports are always extremely well done. And so these are extremely well done as usual. Thank you all.
I appreciate it was really good to see the convention be here this year and the connection. I'm curious, over the years as I've watched this, I knew there was a difference, but I never was quite sure how the national work. What's different about other states than us?
So Wisconsin's unique in that we are the only state in the country that operates under a land conservation committee as a section or a subcommittee primarily of a county board. So have a county district boundary where the rest of the country is either a county district or a watershed district, but they are a separate entity. They are not a arm of the county board of supervisor structure. Those people that serve on those districts are run to be elected strictly for soil and water conservation matters. So Wisconsin's unique in that all of you that are on the Land Conservation Committee are serve in many different capacities than just land conservation. So that's where in 2012, when the state Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation Association merged with the Wisconsin Employees Association for Land Conservation. So like me and my colleagues, the National Association of Conservation Districts didn't really recognize that because throughout the country, staff don't necessarily have a vote when it comes to soil and water districts. So yeah, Wisconsin's the only one in the country that's that way, but I think we've proven ourselves as how we can function, so.
Yeah, you always would hear or read about watershed districts. And we don't really have watershed districts. We have them, but they're not in the official way that they are
Correct.
in other states.
Yep.
Interesting. Anyone else? Thanks, Chase. Let's see, where are we? Down to number 9, approval of the Register of Deeds budget request. You're on, Heather.
You have a motion? Just kidding. Okay, so I guess I can kind of take you through this. So we'll start with the revenues. First is the vital records fees. This just represents the county's portion of the statutory fee of $20 per certified copy. And then any additional copies that are ordered at the same time are charged $3 for additional copies. And we issue approximately 5,000 copies annually. So that's that dollar amount. Recording fees. This is the statutory fee, $30 recording fee. The county retains $15. Rachel Wells, the land information officer, and we usually estimate the number of documents to be recorded each year because she also retains a portion of that fee for the land information plan. And we usually just try to, review historical trends and assess what the current housing market is going to do. So again, both of those, that just goes into the general fund. The transfer fees, this is a one-time statutory fee that applies to any real estate conveyances that are recorded in our office. It's calculated at $3 per thousand based on the property sale price or value. The county retains 20% of that fee. I did increase that a little bit to reflect just the rising real estate prices. copy contract fees. Those are the fees collected for the remote online access and any copy fees. And you'll see that just basically offsets the software related costs, which includes any maintenance fees or licensing fees. And then I just basically for the miscellaneous fees, I did lower that amount and then increase the copy contract just to kind of code it differently, I guess, to just better reflect the revenue. That was the changes there. And again, all of that goes into the general fund.
Heather, this is not like, I mean, it's not a lot of money, but the miscellaneous revenue is really, have you just recategorized that?
Yep, I just moved it basically up into copy contract just to kind of better reflect that it's basically copy fees is what it is, but
Gotcha.
yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions about revenue?
Yeah, thank you. I'll ask it now because it's in several places. What's the less 9,000 wage variable applied in 2025?
That's a great question for Dan.
Fabulous.
Right.
Oh, hi, Dan.
Hi. So we were talking about this in the committee yesterday. So I think one of the things, as you look at this from a committee standpoint, is the department heads are only able to adjust numbers in yellow. So anything that isn't in yellow, they will easily say, I can't change that number. So that is obviously one of those. And you'll also see kind of a difference in, so this one, that's levy on the top, right? The 73,
Yep.
73 and 64.
Yep.
So you'll see a decrease in the levy amount due to wage variable. So if you remember, that wage variable is essentially just a number we don't budget based on the total cost of salary and fringe for the county, right? We take out a percentage of that. So when we do that, so we take out an equivalent percentage to each of the departments, even though we know that that's not necessarily how it's going to play out over time, right? You could have a department that's fully funded for a year, they need their entire allocation. You could have one that goes way under, and then that money kind of comes back. So that's kind of put into their budgets as wage variance in there. So as we get into phase one of this budget, which is where we are right now, we don't put any of that money in because that's a determination to be made again this year as to how much, what the appropriate amount of wage variance is. So you don't see that budgeted. It will come to you again as you look through, as we go through the budget workshop and as we go through further versions of the budget, where that may get reapplied, but we're not assuming that it will be reapplied at this point.
So, for example, if they were totally fully staffed for the entire year, it might look like $73,000. Like in 2025.
Yep.
But we're assuming that on average, they're not going to be fully staffed on average over the whole county.
Yeah, over the whole county.
Over the
So
whole county.
you
So that's what that is right there.
Yeah.
So that they probably won't spend $9,000 on average because of not being fully staffed.
Right. So, yeah, and if you take a department like Register of Deeds, you have 3 employees. A vacancy for a significant amount of time is a significant portion of their budget. So we need to be able to handle that. But if they also were fully funded for a year, so it may be that the sheriff's department has a large amount of vacancies. So then that money comes and pays the difference for a Register of Deeds that stayed 100% funded for the whole year. So it's kind of a way to shuffle those expenses or that savings throughout the county.
Am I right in that we first started using this idea Chris's first year? We never really looked at this as so specific.
So, so we did not ever do the wage variance till, I don't know if it was Chris's first year, but it was certainly within Chris's tenure that we added that. And when we when it comes down to kind of balancing out the budgets, at some point as we put it into our system, we have to make everything balance. When we really look at it though, we look at it as a county-wide thing. So this is really just a way of implementing that on the books. And it makes it really confusing when you look at it here, because we never see that until, all right, it's been approved. Now let's go distribute that cost out to those areas. So, so yes, that is what is happening. And like I said, we'll continue to have those conversations moving forward. I do know that, yeah, just as you bring it up, it was a topic of conversation amongst different counties, and different counties, I would say most counties do it. However, they may do it at a departmental level only in big departments. So Sheriff's Department, DHS, Highway would have a not budget 100% of salary. And so our way of doing that is kind of the same way, but also recognizing some of the smaller departments may also have that. So how do you distribute that?
One more?
Sure.
So this looks like somewhere more than 10%. 9,000 out of 73,000. It seems high.
Yeah, I don't want to do them. Well, I mean, it's 12.37%.
Yeah, it was somewhat more than 10,
so,
yeah.
yeah,
But I seem to remember
yeah.
we'd always looked at like 3
Yeah.
to 5%. when
Yeah,
we're
the
looking
wage
at our
variance
budget.
was 3%. Once again, how that kind of gets applied is, yes, a variable. Yes, yeah.
Any other questions?
Maybe we should start to call it something else for us dummies. I mean, I understood what it was, but I had to dig sort of down deep to understand what was going on here.
I would argue as you kind of look at that, it's not worth looking at.
Oh.
It is truly just a mechanism in how we can put it in the system in order to make things come out balanced in the end. Because so realistically, what the wage variance is a fund balance, right? If we spend more on salary and fringe than we budgeted to levy, then we have to go into our fund balance to do that. If we budgeted, let's just say 2%, so 98% of our salary and fringe for the Register of Deeds office, and Heather was fully funded for the year, theoretically, we would have to take that difference out of fund balance. But the reality is we're not going to do that because the sheriff's department didn't spend all of theirs. So we're going to take some of the sheriffs in order to do that. And so how do you, without making a budget amendment that says, oh, we're going to now increase the levy for the Register of Deeds office and decrease the levy for the sheriff's office, because now we know that we've gotten to that point in December. How do you do that? So this is really just a mechanism to avoid all of that kind of back and forth when we get to the end of the year. So it's.
Yeah, I think it's a really good tool to have, and much better than sort of this general kind of, well, we expect that we will have this percentage available. So
Yep.
I like it personally.
So maybe I'm looking at the wrong one, but did the Register of Deeds lose $50,000? I'm looking at the bottom one here.
So if you're looking at that difference between 399 and 361,
I'm just looking at the bottom. Yeah, sure, I got right there. Is there any way that they could up their rates? Because they can kind of charge within reason, what you want.
Right. So that's where I would say, like, just use the 2025 numbers and kind of assume that when you look at the true difference between that. So when I look at that, what I see is Heather's increasing her revenue by 12,000. Am I right? Yeah. So the 5,000 in the, I can't see the titles. The 125,000 right there. So she's increasing her revenue for the transfer fee by 5,000, and she is increasing her copy contracts by 7. I guess that's actually only 4 when you talk about the other decrease there. So that's about a $9,000 increase in her revenue outside of levy. And that's where we do have levy in there, but levy is applied last. So you can look at what she received in levy or what she received in some of those discretionary funds in the past. But realistically, that's what we're going to do in the end is we're going to say, all right, here's those budgets, here's the revenues they have. How do we go fill in that gap? Last year, we gave her $73,000 of levy. Is that how much we need to do this year? So that's where I would say that 64,000, it's really just a placeholder. It could be 0 and we will figure out how we're going to balance that in the end. And that's the work of, well, 3 of you are on the executive committee. So that's the work of the executive committee. How do we apply that levy or the discretionary spending to each of those departments?
And,
So-
and also the fund balance isn't applied for 2026 either, because we don't know what that will be, if any.
Right. Yep. So that's where I would say, if you want to look at like what Heather is projecting as a change to her budget, I would say that you're looking at a $9,000 increase in her revenues, of which she has control over, is what had happened. Am I right there, Heather?
Yeah, basically just, looking at the trends from previous years, that's where I saw I could increase transfer fees, but probably trying to remain pretty conservative just to make sure we meet those revenues. But, Dan mentioned the 73,000. I don't recall off the top of my head, but I don't think we actually ended up using that full levy amount based on our revenues for 2025. But that's not how you have to budget for that. So.
And then,
All right, let's go into,
Okay. So moving on to expenses, as Dan mentioned, the personnel costs and the IT costs, those are provided to us directly. So our operating costs are highlighted in yellow. So that's what I have the authority to change there. And it looks like I've kept everything the same except for office supplies. I did reallocate the printing and duplication into the office supplies, just kind of better representation, I guess, of what we're doing there. And the membership dues, I increased by $60 to include PRIA membership, which is Property Records Industry Association. I think I've usually taken that out of job-related education, so that's just, again, a better reflection of that, how I'm spending that. Travel, conference and seminars, I slightly increased that just due to increased registration fees. And otherwise, everything else remained the same. So any questions on expenses?
just, any closing comments or questions for me? We need to approve this stage of this budget request, I guess. So is there a motion to consider approval?
I'll move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any clarification needed? Any discussion? All in favor of the approval, motion to approve, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Budget is approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Approval of ENS budget requests.
Okay, good morning again. I will lead off. We'll do all three of ours separately. So I have the survey division budget up on the screen here. This is the basic overview. I will jump into the actual numbers. So let's start, as Heather did, at the top with our revenue. I'll try and get this on here so everybody can hopefully see that. We have three main sources of revenue, the largest being land division revenue, and that's review of mainly certified survey maps. We very rarely get plats in. And in the budget, we are anticipating no plats for next year. That could change, but right now we're not anticipating any plats based on historical trends. I've kept the revenue flat. This is somewhat difficult, trying to pin down how many maps we're going to get in a year from now. I'm slightly concerned about this year. We are behind. We're right around 50, 51 on the year. Last year, we were around 65 at this time. So, but again, I'm anticipating that revenue to remain flat, 75 maps coming in, and then additional number of lots because we charge so much per lot. I should mention, we do collect fees for variance requests. We get a minimal number of those a year. That revenue goes into the same line item, but it's basically very small, and I would argue negligible when compared with the land division review. So and then we also do interdepartmental work for the highway department, which consists of marking out right of ways, locating property corners ahead of construction, and then resetting any property corners that may have been disturbed through construction activities. So we do that work, bill them directly at the end of the year, usually in the month of December. And that can be somewhat difficult to estimate too, how many projects we're going to be working on next year. I guess we know the projects and the stretches of road, but we have no way of anticipating how many monuments could get destroyed and need to be reset. I have increased that slightly by $1,000 just based on historical trends. We typically been taking in more than 2,500 a year, so I raised that to 3,500. And then our last revenue source, which is very minuscule, $40, and that's copies. Very rarely do we get people in the office anymore looking, for copies of records. Everything is available online. So, but I did put a placeholder there, $40. So any questions on the revenue side for the survey office?
Questions? It's not.
Okay, then I'll jump down into our expenses. And again, I'm just going to focus on the yellow items, the items we have control over. We can certainly go through any other items, but to start out, I'll go through the yellow. And I'm only going to highlight the ones where we have either an increase or a decrease. The rest try to do a good job and maintain a 0% increase, but in some cases, I feel we can't. So the first one where we have a change is maintenance contracts. We've been budgeting $645 there. I'm raising that to $2,045. It's a 217% increase, but mind you, we're dealing with small numbers here, so any increase looks quite large. The increase is totally due to firmware updates for our GPS equipment. We haven't updated, so firmware, think of it as your smartphone. You get prompted periodically to install the latest version of the operating system for bug fixes, for security reasons, whatever. In basic terms, that's what a firmware update is for our GPS equipment. We haven't been performing those updates for many years. The equipment's been working fine, but you may remember we upgraded to a robotic total station. As part of that upgrade, our firmware was outdated with our GPS equipment, so we were forced, for a better term, to upgrade everything. And we just feel it's very beneficial to make those upgrades yearly, and there's a cost to that. So it's $1,400. Talking with our vendor to upgrade our 2 GPS receivers and our data collector and our total station. So that is by far the largest increase I'm proposing in our operating expenses. As we move down, I'll go down to membership dues. So again, all these are 0% increase. In yellow, membership dues. So I had an employee retire last December. Of course, the budgets were all adopted prior to that, so I had budgeted for that employee to attend a conference. That employee is no longer attending the conference, so as far as membership dues, so if we look at the Wisconsin Society of Land Surveyors, it's 3.64% increase. It's a $20 increase, and I need to explain it perhaps. So in the past, for a regular membership, it was $180 per person, which totaled $360. Well, those prices have went up by $30 per person. So we are saving, and then the affiliate membership was $90. Well, we no longer have that, so I removed that. And then we have a $60 increase for Greg and I, which leaves us a $30 surplus. But I'm adding in an affiliate membership dues for the County Surveyors Association. My employee was paying that out of his own pocket. So between an employee retiring, costs going up, cost savings, the net result is a $20 increase, and it gains one affiliate membership for the County Surveyors Association. So I feel it's a modest ask for that. As we move down, the only other item would be, so again, 0% increase, gasoline, operating supplies. I'm showing a decrease in registration fees and tuition. And again, it's because of that employee that is no longer full-time. So I'm going to do some quick math here. I ran these numbers, and just by coincidence, everything works out here as a wash. So just bear with me. We're increasing $1,400 here on the maintenance contracts. And then we're increasing $20 down here on the membership dues. So we have $1,420 in increases. If we take off the $420 we're saving on the conference down here, that puts us $1,000 of additional expense. But I'm increasing our revenue by $1,000 up here for highway. So strictly looking at the yellow items, it's a wash. Our increases are canceled out by our revenues. So that's all I have on my budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Any questions?
Could I just point out in the total expenses, so this is kind of factoring in that salary and fringe as we did, you'll see that there's a decrease, an overall decrease of about 30,000. And so part of that is you had increased salaries, but he also went from a full-time position down to that part-time position, which will be reflected as an increase when Tammy gets to hers. So I just want to see that you'll see a little bit of a balance out happen there.
And thank you, Dan. That's a good point that I forgot to mention.
I just have to say that you are incredibly frugal about meals and travel and like, really?
You balance your checkbook every month.
I do.
You do. Any other questions? Thanks. Tammy.
Well, luckily Dan answered the first question about my changes in expenses. As initially just reflecting the staffing change for my department. I guess I'm just going to jump right into revenues. I kept it pretty safe up to this point, based on trends with a slight increase. I do anticipate bringing forward a new fee schedule to the committee. So safe now reflected here, but I would think that we would see new revenues next year. My revenues are pretty straightforward. I don't know if there's any questions on that. Expenses, again, this was kind of a point in time. My feeling about the Carlson software for our CAD drawings will probably change if we can get this GPS equipment up and running. We wouldn't need to have 2 licenses there. I am respectfully asking the committee to support us having 3 cell phones. I do feel I have staff who are out in the field and show the volume of workload that it'd be, easily to support cell phones for the staff. And again, just standard repair and maintenance of our vehicles, items reflected there. Probably the big portion is just, and again, Dan will be able to chime in the best way to handle this, but we do have our comprehensive plan that is underway. A portion of that carry forward will need to again carry forward to 2026 to pay out that contract. So we'll have some billing this year of that 107 or 114 will be billed out this year, and additional will be carried over for 2026. So that's probably a slight difference in what the budget looks like. I did increase our public hearing notices. Again, 2026, we will have several public hearings for the comprehensive plan. I anticipate several ordinance changes and making sure we reflect them in our budget for next year. Standard office supplies, field equipment reflected in the zoning side. And then just briefly on the planning budget, I did add travel conference for staff to attend a couple planning conferences in 2026. Questions?
Any questions? Satisfied. Thank you, Tam. Jace.
All right. I'll jump into my revenues as well. I don't have any planned changes on revenue based on things that we have coming in. The multi-discharger variance, we've typically budgeted 10,000 each year for that because we don't know those funds until after the budget's approved. So then we typically come back with a budget adjustment. So we keep those the same. Also included in my budget is our overall ENS office. So this is where our office supplies as well as funding that supports the Red Cedar Watershed conferences. So that's that line item under general office for 5,865. So that's been pretty much stable for a while. Jumping into expenses, you won't see any changes until you get down to probably page 3, Tom, the next page. I've shuffled some funds around. So our no-till drill that we rent out, we purchased that piece of equipment in 2017. And as with anything that ages, it starts to cost more money. So some of our repairs and things are a little bit more expensive. So in line item 524045, so it'll be the third one down on that page, you will see an increase. And I've just moved money from some of our other line items that we typically have been really low spending or not spending at all the last couple of years to kind of help support that line item. So overall, there's no increase in requests for expenses. It's just moving some money from different line items. The next line item down, so 524050, so that'd be that multi-discharger variance again, went from 30,000 to 10,000. Again, like I said before, that's just based on what type of funds or the number of funds we get in a given year. So trying to err on the side of caution, but we will likely be, we might be on track to spend all of those funds this year, so we wouldn't need to do any carry forward. And then it'll just be a budget adjustment request depending on what we actually get in revenue coming for next year. You'll see a few more line items towards the bottom that are zeroed out, and those are moved towards that no-till drill repair. And then the very last line item on that page is a significant decrease, and that's for that EPA grant that we received it's paying for our water sampling right now, our private well sampling. And basically any money that is unspent this year will just be a carry forward, and we're obviously not requesting any new money on that. So that's why it's zeroed out in this budget. On to the next page, you'll see our asset capital leases. So line item 581700, that is a new line item. And this has to do with our moving our lease payments for one of our fleet vehicles into our operating budget. In the past, that was capital improvement funds. And now in order to continue those lease payments, similar to the way facilities handles their fleet vehicles, it's moved into an operating line item. So there's a $9,000 increase for that new line item to pay for that vehicle for the year. Those are not necessarily new funds. It's funds that we've had as part of that capital improvement and also through our balance we have with enterprise. That's pretty much it on my general operating budget. Before I move into grants, if there's a pause for any questions on that operating side.
Questions?
Okay, next couple pages is our revenues and expenditures for all the grants we receive. You'll see some changes there based on many of these grants are annual grants. So even though we apply for them every year, we have to have a different line item for them. The biggest changes that you'll probably see on these are particularly related to Hay River Farmer-Led Watershed Group. So line item 43500, about the middle of that top section, went from 26,000 up to 40,000. So every year we're applying for the max amount of money that we can get. And sometimes we don't always get those funds based on how much is available statewide. We have been on an upward trend with that particular group lately and getting more funds for that grant. So that's why we're anticipating a little bit of an increase. But again, in the end, we will likely need to do a budget adjustment to adjust what we actually get in that grant after the beginning of the year. And then our expenses will not exceed whatever we have in revenue. You'll see a few line items left on that revenue that have been 100% decreases, and those are basically projects that are in the 2025 budget. We're not expecting to have anything new for 2026, and any leftover funds from 25 we will do as a carry forward. So we're not budgeting any new money for that. Finishing up that page is just our getting into our expenses side of things. So you'll see reflection in matching of revenues with these expenses matching the revenues. And then the very last page is where you'll see our capital improvement portion and kind of where we move those funds into an operating line item instead of under capital improvement for that vehicle lease. So I guess with that, that's Land and Water Conservation Divisions. If you have questions, we'll try to answer.
Any questions, Chase?
The question is, for all your departments, what has your raise been, or does it stay the same for your for money coming in and money going out? I mean, just for the total expense, has your expenses gone up more than last year?
I would say,
Because sometimes you go up and down, it's kind of hard to keep exactly what you're talking about, some are changed around a little bit.
I would say generally for our general operating, it has not changed. Expenses have been stayed pretty much the same for my division. The things that do change are grants. But as grants come and go, we're not spending any more than we get. So really that's kind of a wash. Money
going
yep.
out.
The only other differences is, in expense would be staffing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll see that as a reoccurring trend. The increases to costs are salary and fringe. We're seeing operating expenses other than salary and fringe at, I believe, countywide, based on everything that departments have submitted right now, we're looking in total operations to the general fund, like I think it's like a $200,000 or $300,000 increase in operating over countywide, right? Salary and fringe, different story. So a few more digits. If you don't have any more questions, I want to go.
Any other questions?
Pertinent to that point, Dan, were departments told to minimally or not at all increase operating expenses? Is that a directive?
No,
No?
it was not a directive per se, so it was in the, it was in the guidance to try to target 0%. I think we want to make sure that we can't, well, I guess part of that is, we can't continue to grow and provide, better services or react to the services that our community needs without having departments have the opportunity to tell us what is important, right? So there hasn't been a strong directive of you cannot. But as you see, right, you're seeing $20 increases to this and that, right? So I think for the most part, department heads have been very good about looking at that and understanding that full picture and not making those increases. And those increases that do happen, we'll be talking about at the budget workshop. But for the most part, as you talk about those increases,
They're minimal.
everything is really just an increase to this cost by 5% because that's how much the cost of that went up.
Thanks for that, but I mean, I appreciate giving them some flexibility and not absolutely dropping the hammer on no operating cost
Yep.
increase. Although we've done rather well at that for the last several budget cycles, so.
Well, no increase is typically a cut, right?
Well, that's probably true.
Because your expenses
Sure.
are going up, so you're cutting something.
Any other questions?
So, you're talking about expenses going up, but how about, we got these people that have worked here 25, 30, 40 years, and then all of a sudden you have a new person come in, so they start a lot lower. So doesn't that kind of balance out sooner or later?
You'd think so. So part of that is what the wage variance covers a little bit
Yeah.
of those types of changes happening. I would say maybe a couple of years ago, we saw more people at the top getting replaced by somebody less, but we're seeing we've had very good retention this year. But I think what we're seeing is in the market, you may see some people near the top that are leaving, but we may be replacing them with someone who's like mid-career coming in there. So you're not seeing somebody going from, replacing somebody at step 11 with somebody at step 1. You're more than likely having somebody leave at step 8 and somebody start at step 4, right? So you don't see that huge gap of a change inside of that. So, and I mean, yes, we have an aging workforce. I don't remember the true number, but I think it's somewhere around like 40% are going to be retirement eligible in the next 5 years, 30%. So you have some of that, but then as you look at everybody else, where do they fall into that scale? So I guess before you move forward, I'll explain the big pieces of paper that I set down in front of you. After this. Yep. So yes, I provided the paper. Paper's cheaper than buying everybody magnifying glasses. So what this is, and you'll see more about this, and we'll talk more about it at the budget workshop. So this is a printout of the priority-based budgeting program summary for the departments that report to this committee. So we've been going around to each of the committees to do that. So as you may remember, as we talked about priority-based budgeting, one of the first things that we did in this is developing this program inventory. And it's really a different way of looking at budgets. So as you just went through budgets, you get to see a line item, how much was being spent on travel or expenses or whatever other type of item was in there and the changes to that. This is really looking at it based on the service that's being provided to the general public. So this is one of the longer lists of all of the committees. You can thank Chase for that, as he provides lots of smaller little programs out to the public. So this is breaking down all of, take a specific program that is being provided, understanding what the total cost of providing that program is, how much of that is personnel, how much of that is non-personnel, and then there's a revenue section. So that revenue reflects essentially the non-levy revenue. So any money that they take in other than, call it levy, but I'm going with the county's discretionary revenues. So when you factor in state aid and some of the other types of revenues that we have in addition to the tax levy. So we did all of that work. And then the next step, we had department heads go through and went through this scoring system within the software. And our hope coming out of that was it was going to help us shrink down that list to say, all right, here's a few programs that you should really look at. So after we did that and we looked at our scoring, we found our high cost, low impact, low mandate program list. And it was, all right, here's our target. Here's the stuff we're going to talk about. First one on the list, 911. So we looked at that and said, all right, there's something wrong with this scoring that the reality isn't necessarily being captured within those numbers. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to take advantage of kind of that scoring mechanism, but I do think that there was some insights into the idea behind what was being scored as to helping you make decisions about programs. And then the other part, obviously, that we got out of priority-based budgeting is all of these different programs and the breakdown that happened here. So what we then asked department heads to do to kind of help winnow down the long list, there's 187 programs in the county, is the columns K, L, and M, so the three on the far right. We had department heads kind of go through and provide a summary of these three areas, and I'll go over those a little bit. So these were three areas that were part of the scoring, but I think they're part of the scoring that it's hard to quantify in does this get a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, right? So the cost summary. So the idea around cost summary in the scoring is there another way for us to increase revenue for this program? So is that an option for us to decrease the amount of taxpayer funding that's available to that? So what we asked department heads to do in this cost summary is to explain those revenue sources. Where do you get your revenue to provide this program? And is there options to maybe increase that, decrease that, in order to kind of decrease the gap between the total cost and the revenue. So take this first one that's on the list, equipment rental. Right, I'm gonna pick on you, Chase, just because the alphabet gotcha. So you can see there's a difference between the total cost and the revenue of about $15,000. I noticed this one didn't have numbers on it. That's the other reason I printed it out. So you can see there's a difference there, right? So that difference is being made up in some other type of funding. So let's explain how that all works. The next column over is the mandate. You've heard mandate over and over and over and over again. I like to say there's no such thing as a mandate. There's lots of things that we are required to do, but they fall on a spectrum. And that is, once again, as you got into the scoring, are you required to do that? Yeah, we're required to do that. The level of which you're required to do that is typically discretionary. By example, and I had just shared this with department heads this morning, but I've been talking about it in other areas. The requirement for the highway department, the county must provide passable roads. So we have a mandate to provide passable roads. What does that mean? Does that mean asphalt, concrete, gravel, sand? So we wanted department heads to go through this mandate summary. So explain, there's a statute out there, there's something out there that says what you need to do. Explain what that means. So that you can make a determination of, so that you as supervisors can kind of make a determination of what is it that we're required to do and how far do we have to go and where's our leniency within that. So you can see kind of a little write-up in each of those areas that explains what that true mandate is. And then the last area that was another one that was kind of hard to capture numerically is it's titled Who, How, Many Served, Why, How, which is the question that had to be answered as part of priority-based budgeting is what percentage of the population do you serve? Well, every program in the county serves the entire population, right? So that doesn't provide us any sort of differentiation between things. So we asked for department heads to explain, who is served by your program? How many people do you reach out to? Or do you have direct contact with? And then what is the greater impact of the contact that you have, right? So take law enforcement, right? So they may only have contact with one person that's speeding down the highway, but the impact of stopping that person from speeding is the safety of everybody else that happens to be on the highway at that time, right? So that's something that kind of has to be explained. Obviously, that's a simple one, but each of those different programs has different impacts like that. So this is how many people we actually touch, and this is the greater impact of why we provide that service.
So there's an AI generated score that comes with this, yeah?
Well, the score wasn't AI generated.
Okay,
There's
I thought that's what the software provided us.
no, the AI generation provided an initial summary of the programs that we may provide as a county based on our budget. So we threw our budget in and it said, here's the programs you probably provide and a description of them. So it did that work for us. Then our department heads went and fixed that up a little bit. And then we did the scoring. And then the last part, and the other part that AI came in is there is a list of potential, options that you have. So it isn't, so none of the potential list are cuts. It is, here's an example of a county that chose to increase their fees for variances to be able to decrease the total impact on the taxpayer, right? So you're shifting that cost from A to B. So each different program area has a list of like 3 or 4 different things that another county somewhere in the world, I think in some cases, has
For each of these programs.
tried for each program. So that's something that department heads have seen. Some of that information isn't necessarily relevant. It requires a level of kind of digging into. Our hope in kind of going through this, and as we get into the budget workshop, is to go through this, winnow down this list a little bit and say, all right, here's some target programs. We're going to bring those back to department heads and say, let's go see some of the options that you may be able to come up with in order to make some changes there.
So you may recall that in exec, I voiced some concerns about this whole process. Is there some point at which the board gets involved in looking at scoring, ranking options? Or
Next
does that
Wednesday.
devolve? That's the budget workshop.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
utilizing this priority-based system.
Right. But that's where, like I said, we did that scoring component department heads kind of did the scoring, but as we look at those numbers, I mean, I can provide them to you if you want to see them, but don't ask me why anything got scored where it is, because I can't answer it. Based on where things fell, it does not, it was very clear that it did not reflect reality.
That's a very likely possibility.
Yep. And
Right.
like I said, and I think part of that is, and that's where these 3 areas that we asked to do a summary, like that is something that's hard to put a number on. Right. So that's where I think as we get that back to the board to say, look through these things and let's go through and let's figure out where we want to, what are the programs that we want to look at as a board to dig into, because to do a deep dive into all 187 programs is a waste of
Yeah,
time.
it's ridiculous.
So how do we shrink that list down in some way, shape, or form?
And
And
the
it's-
evaluation part of this has always been my biggest concern. I mean, I can't have a little section of a spreadsheet that tells me what kind of overall impact on our citizens these programs have. I mean, it's like not possible.
Yep.
I'll be quiet.
So, so I just wanted to introduce you to what that looks like for these departments. We are going to be providing the full list of the 187 programs to you digitally. My plan is to get that out on Friday so that you have a little bit of time before Wednesday to kind of go over that, and then we're putting together some mechanism to help the board work together to winnow down a list for us to do some more work and digging into those.
I'm just curious what your thoughts are in general. I mean, the scoring surprised you because it didn't work the way we wanted it to. But
Yeah,
this looks pretty helpful to me.
I think this is helpful because you see that at a program-based level. I do think that even though 187 is a big number, there's more. As you really can break down some of these programs. I was talking with Austin in facilities. So one of the programs in facilities is facilities maintenance. Well, when you actually break down facilities maintenance, there's kind of other levels of what that is. So he has like lawn mowing and snow plowing as a separate item, but within building maintenance, you have preventative maintenance, and then you have painting walls or moving somebody's desk, right? So from a program standpoint, as you look at choosing how you're going to spend your time, those are 2 completely different sets of information to make a decision about. It's easy for us to say, you know what, we're not going to paint anybody's walls anymore because that costs us additional money, and we'd rather spend our time on preventative maintenance and making sure that our buildings last as long as they can, right? So right now, those are one program that theoretically could be 2. And there's, I think, lots of different examples of that where you can really dive in as you start making those determinations.
Thanks, Dan. Any thoughts that staff would want to share about this process? Okay, I understand. Anything else? Any other questions? Anything else, Dan? Yes. So you're back to item 9B, approval of the ENS budget request. We have a motion to put this on the table. We have a second.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any clarification needed? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Both say no. So budget requests are approved. I think that's the last agenda item. Any announcements from anyone? Next meeting is September 3rd. And we are adjourned. Thanks a lot for all the work, Jeff.
Yeah, really.